Our group decided to answer the question, how do media industries shape media audiences?
Media industries shape media audiences by providing false perception of social reality. This television media causes viewers to believe there is more violence than there actually is. We used Bandura's social learning theory and Gerbner's cultivation theory to show how violent media can increase levels of aggression and perceptions of violence in daily life.
A complete theory of aggression must explain how aggressive patterns are developed, what provokes people to behave aggressively, and what sustains such actions after they have been initiated. Bandura said people are not born with performed repertoires of aggressive behavior, but that they must learn them. This brings us to the exposure of televised violence and the 4 different effects they can have on viewers. The first effect being that it teaches aggressive styles of conduct. Secondly, it alters restraints over aggressive behavior. And third, it desensitizes and habituates people to violence. It also shapes people's images of reality upon which they base many of their actions. Television can foster humanitarian qualities as well as injurious violent conduct. Desensitization and habituation to violence are reflected in decreases in physiological reactions to repeated exposure to displays of violence. Consequently, people form impressions of the social realities in which they have little or no contact, partly from televised representations of society. Many of the misconceptions that people develop about certain occupations, nationalities, ethnic groups, sex roles, social roles, and other aspects of life are cultivated through modeling of stereotypes by the media.
In the Bobo doll experiment, Bandura conducted a study to investigate if social behaviors, such as aggression, can be acquired by imitation. Under controlled conditions, Bandura arranged for 24 boys and girls to watch a male or female model behaving aggressively towards a toy called a Bobo doll. They watched a model attack a Bobo doll in a distinctive manner, such as using a hammer, and in some cases throwing the doll in the air and shouting boom or pow. Another 24 children were exposed to a non-aggressive model, and the final 24 children were used as a control group and not exposed to any model at all. The researchers tested the children for how aggressive they were by observing the children in the nursery and judged their aggressive behavior on 4 5-point rating scales. The children who observed the aggressive models made far more imitative aggressive responsive than those who were in the non-aggressive or control groups.
Exposure to aggressive modeling increased attraction to guns, even though it was never modeled. Guns had less appeal to children who had no exposure to the aggressive modeling. The children also picked up the novel hostile language.
The findings support Bandura's social learning theory, a behaviorist theory. That is, children learn social behavior such as aggression through the process of observation learning, through watching the behavior of another person. Central to social learning theory is the identification of which types of models are more likely to be imitated. I'll stop it.
Okay, F10.
Just put it here.
Yeah, probably. The Zimbardo study was a study done with college student participants in which they were divided up into 2 groups depending on if they were given a uniform that represented a guard or a prisoner. The study was supposed to last for 2 weeks but was shut down just after 6 days due to the excessive force shown by the guards on the prisoners. Zimbardo's study focused on de-individuation, which is when the altered perception of self and others weakens cognitive control over behavior, thus facilitating intense impulsive action. The cultivation hypothesis suggests that over time, heavy viewers of television develop views of the world similar to what they see on television. 2 concepts that come with this are mainstreaming and resonance. The concept of mainstreaming assumes that dominant sets of attitudes, beliefs, values, and practices exist within cultures. Some of these values can be determined by patterns that emerge through television viewing that depict stereotypes of the world and violence in the world. Resonance occurs when real-world events support the distorted image of reality shown on television. These are some of the critiques of the cultivation theory. Personal experience can play a factor into how the effects of mainstreaming and resonance have on a person. Other variables that moderate the cultivation effect are viewing motivations, attention level, need for cognition, nation of origin, and elaboration styles. One's personality also plays a role into how individuals respond to messages. Personality has failed to have been mentioned in studies on cultivation theory.
Mean World Syndrome is a phenomenon where violence-related content of mass media convinces viewers that the world is more dangerous than it actually is and prompts a desire for more protection than is warranted by any actual threat. Mean World Syndrome is one of the main conclusions of cultivation theory. The term Mean World Syndrome was coined by George Gerbner, a pioneer researcher on the effects of television on society, where he noted that people who watched a lot of TV tended to think of the world as an unforgiving and scary place. In 1990, Gerbner founded the Cultural Environment Movement, an advocacy group for greater diversity in the media. Violence on TV has 3 consequences. The more TV you watch, the more you feel you live in a mean world. Second, violence portrayed on TV is normal, therefore, people lose the ability to understand the consequence of violence. And third, pervasive sense of insecurity and vulnerability. Gerbner says that the most violence on TV is what he calls happy violence. It is swift, thrilling, cool, effective, painless, and always leads to a happy ending. Children now see 8,000 murders by the end of elementary school and 200,000 violent acts by the age of 18. Local news is the primary source for 2/3 of Americans. 61% of all lead stories on local news are dedicated to crime, fires, disasters, and accidents. And 2/3 of those who say crime is a serious or very serious problem get their news from television.
In conclusion, this is what we learned from researching how media influences audiences.
While there is still research to be done to determine whether viewing violent TV and actual violence are a cause and effect relationship,
It has been determined viewing violent TV plays a factor into how people perceive violence.
We concluded, after studying the findings by Bandura, Gerbner, and Gross, that graphic television violence is related to aggression and desensitization.